So I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Alliance for Childhood, the Lifelong Learning Platform, and of course, the European Council and the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation. And I think we're going to jump straight in. So I would like to welcome our guest of honor, Michaela Zoidrova. And usually our QOC sessions, so this is usually our quality of childhood talks are actually hosted in the European Parliament, and so obviously the current circumstances didn't make that possible this time, but that also opened the possibility to more people to join. And Michaela kindly accepted to still attend and give us some opening words. She sits on the group of the European People's Party and is also coordinator of the CULT Committee, so the Committee on Culture and Education. And in her home country, Czech Republic, she is with the Christian Democrats. And already in the Czech Parliament, she was a member of the Committee on Education. And since 2010, she's also working as coordinator of EU projects at the headquarters of the Czech School Inspection. And she's representative of the Ministry of Education in the OECD. So please correct me, Michaela, if I got anything wrong or if I missed something. But I'd like to give you a very warm welcome, and the word is yours.
Thank you very much for your introducing of myself, because it was perfect. It's not necessary to add nothing. Just maybe in OECD, we especially concentrated in assessment evaluation on formative assessment. So it's perfect, these issues what we have today. I would like to thank you for your invitation to the Lifelong Learning Week 2020 with your European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education. I know that your conference is going to focus on the formative assessment in the context of the European education area. So let me start with the reflection on what we are living now. This year we are moving online with lifelong learning events. It's not our choice. It's necessity given by the circumstances. We all are moving to virtual environment. You in schools, in administration, we in politics, in the European Parliament, we are every time in a remote, in distance form. We vote in distance form. So it's a different situation. By doing so, we all improve our digital skills. So for us, it's also some lifelong learning. We also realize the advantages and limits of digital communication and digital education. Having said that, we can consider the COVID-19 period as both a challenge and opportunity. We have to learn from this situation by applying the good practices of some countries in terms of using digital tools for education, but we know that there is a big gap in attendance of pupils. I would like just to remember that 32% of pupils have not access to digital education because digital equipment. An example of such a good practices is the electronic platform for adult learning in Europe, a multilingual and open membership community of adult learning professionals, including adult educators, trainers, guidance of support staff, which is funded by Erasmus Plus program. Its role is to keep the adult learning community connected. However, we know that digital education cannot replace the physical one. Interaction with the teachers is crucial for pupils' development. For assessment of skills acquired at school, pupils' participation has to be ensured. So the role of formative assessment is indispensable. Formative assessment, providing the feedback to pupils, is the way how to increase educational achievements, how to improve the skills, how to decrease inequalities between students. I believe that this event could help with sharing of good practices across our EU area. There is never enough of it. So, thank you for your choice of these issues. I wish success and fruitful debate to your conference, and I will be glad to receive your ideas and inputs. And I am looking forward to our next cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. And I would like to, yes, I'm very grateful that you were able to come. And I hope that everyone has now arrived in the meeting and can hear us properly. If there are any problems, technical problems, do not hesitate to write to the Lifelong Learning platform contact on this Zoom. I would like to pass the word on to Michiel from the Alliance for Childhood, who is chair and source of these quality of childhood talks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Michiel, this is the 78th QUOC talk. So that's already a long history behind it, and our organizations, ECSWE and Learning for Wellbeing, have been working closely with the Alliance for many years. And in fact, many of our collaborations with other organizations were born out of the Alliance community. And that's the same for this project, this Erasmus project that has inspired the theme of today, collecting good practices of formative and personalized assessment. So I just wanted to say this anecdote, that it was actually in a QUOC talk that during a discussion with Martina Reichardt that the idea came up to actually collect good practices in assessment practices. And that was born from another Alliance meeting. So thank you, Michiel, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. We had 2 weeks ago a very nice session also with Sistema Europe to celebrate the 31st anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So that was our 78th session, and this is the 79th session now. So
wow.
a great welcome. I thank Mrs. Sodrova to co-host this event. And as you said, during this Quality of Childhood talk, two partners of the Alliance for Childhood, it is the European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education and the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation, took the initiative to present the first start of their work. And the title of the session is Assessment and Dialogue, Enabling Pupils to Actively Participate in their Assessment. So I think it is great to have this event online. We have 3 pages of faces, so it's quite a lot of people. And then I like to give the floor back to Ilona to take us further.
Yes, well, thank you, Michiel, and it's really wonderful to be part of the 79th session. We are honored to be part of this. So thank you, and we're closely moving to the heart of our topic, or today's topic. So the formative and personalized assessment practices you will discover today are part of a collection of 20 practices funded by the Erasmus Plus program. And so I would like to give a few minutes to Marta Demokos, who is our coordinator, who is a wonderful coordinator of our Erasmus Plus project. And she would like to introduce our project in a few words.
Thank you, Ilona. And welcome, dear colleagues and friends. And it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces and also to see new ones. So as Ilona said, I'm Marta Demokos, and I coordinate this wonderful Erasmus Plus project that we are here to explore today. And I'm going to repeat the title of it again and again so that it just sinks in. And this project is called Personalized and Formative Assessment Practices, Supporting School and Learner Development. And it is a joint project of the European Council of Steiner Waldorf Education, of the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation, and the Hungarian Waldorf Federation, on whose behalf I am taking part in the project. I do not have the possibility now to go into too much detail on how we built up this project. For that, I would like to refer you to our website, which will be shared with you all shortly. And this is our project website. However, the people who know me know that I am an ardent writer and even a fan of the Erasmus+ program. And I would like to highlight the great possibilities this program offers for strengthening cooperations such as this one. This project grew out of a discussion group on assessment, which included teachers, parents, researchers, and various organizations. This group answered to the need of these people and organizations to look into assessment methods that could complement or even replace standardized testing. Assessment practices that accept and help to develop the individual pathways of children and youngsters in order to be able to discover their unique potential and to help them to become who they are. From these discussions, our project arose. Before we started conducting research or developing methodologies, which might be the goal of a next joint project, we needed to look around what is out there already, out in the educational field. The 20 practices that are being collected often have sound methodologies behind them, but in this collection, we mainly collect the stories and the people behind the practices, the teachers, the pupils, the parents, and the schools. As our project is still ongoing, so what you can see and hear today is a selection of our findings up till now. So let's discover these findings together and have some really good discussions. So thank you for being here. And now I would like to give the word back to Ilona and to Camille Comperen from the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation.
Thank you, Marti. And yes, Camille is also with me, helping me. Camille, please give us a wave. Yes, so thank you so much. That was I posted the website of the project in the chat if anyone wants to have a look. I also wanted to pass on some greetings from Richard Landl, who is the president of the European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education, and unfortunately cannot be with us for health reasons today, but would like to pass on his warmest greetings to everyone. So I'll be happy to continue from here. I'm actually lucky to be part of the collection team of the practices together with Shanti George from the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation, Camille Comperen, and Cecilia Sharka. So please say hello, all of you, if you're there. I can't see you. Where are you? You can unmute yourself. Just say hello so people recognize you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you here.
Wonderful. So, and yeah, by the way, Shanti, thank you for your help with the organization of this meeting as well. So the project is to collect good practices from around and across Europe. And by no means these practices are a prescription. They're really an inspiration on, and we are writing about them in the form of a narrative. So stories of teachers in schools who have decided to assess for learning and who keep the focus on the growth of the potential of each child within their assessment practices. And some practices were developed and are implemented on a classroom level, linked to a subject and an age group, some on a school level, and some even at a system or a national level. And this is really a boutique research project in the way that Shanti always says it. And so every story is adapted to its context and is unique. However, there are clearly some themes that are emerging, important elements that come up often and seem to be foundations for true personalized and formative practices. And so I would like to just briefly give out these 4 kind of transversal themes that we have been noticing. And one of them is the importance of dialogue, assessment and dialogue. So dialogue between the teacher and the pupil, to use the past to build a future and enliven the learning process. Also dialogue with parents, of course, dialogue with parents and together with the students and the teachers to connect to the shared educational responsibility. And of course, the dialogue between pupils themselves in all the peer assessment processes that bring a lot of strength and insight as well. So that's really one important transversal theme. And a second one is the art of writing good reports. Because if a set of grades is replaced by a personalized account about the pupil and her engagement with the subject, then how to write something that contributes to their development, that gives a holistic and honest picture without judging. And a third important theme that has also emerged is teaching and assessing based on individual pupils' needs, of course. And so structures of assessments that are allowing for personalization to be able to have the right assessment, the right assignment for the right pupil at the right time. And so offering several possibilities and maximizing the chances for each pupil to show the best of his or her capabilities. And that often obviously means self-agency and clear communication. And the fourth theme that I would like to bring up here, and that will be detailed a bit later on, is this idea of assessment through play and joy. So assessment contexts that can be efficient and enjoyable at the same time. And that often goes through the observation of natural occurring evidence in contexts where pupils are relaxed and being themselves. So the last thing I would like to say as well, that obviously what we've noticed through this project is that good assessment always goes hand in hand with a good pedagogical spirit, if I can put it that way. And of course that there is no pupil involvement in assessment if there's no pupil engagement in the learning process. That's so obviously it's no surprise, everything's interrelated. But I think that's enough of me right now. I'm thrilled to have here with us 4 participating teachers representing 3 practices that are part of the collection. And so the program now is to have a short energizer and then to discover these 3 practices in small lightning talks, and then go on to an open plenary discussion led by Michiel, as in every quality of childhood talk. As well, and after that we will have breakout rooms to address policy questions, so you'll be able to be in a breakout room with one of the 3 well, not teachers because we have 4 teachers, but one of the 3 practices. And we will end with a plenary to collect all the results from the breakout rooms, and then some closing remarks by Shanti. So okay, so I just want, before we start with the real stuff, I wanted to test your concentration and your level of attention right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a chain of mimics. We're going to do it for about 2 minutes. It's very short. So you just show the gallery view so you see everyone on the screen. Well, not everyone, there are 3 pages, but at least one of the 4 pages. And the idea is that I'll start with a mimic and I'll name someone, and you have to do my mimic and then yours and name someone else. And we can do it with 5 participants, and everyone joins in and does the mimics. So we can all kind of still have fun on the screen. So I'll start by going like this, and I name Shanti to do the next mimic following on from that. So go ahead, Shanti, you can do that and then add your mimic to it. And who do you name?
Oh, she's mute.
Yeah, she's on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, I named Marion Briggs.
Okay, so we've got that, and then that. And who do you name, Marion?
Ulrika Sievers.
I saw that and this, and then I couldn't find Marion. I think it was this, or what was the next one? Can you help me?
Yes, like that.
Oh, okay, like that. Okay. And
Do unmute yourself when you're doing it so everyone can see you.
okay, and then I add this one. And I call on Hannah Lynn.
So there's this.
Where is Hannah? Oops.
Then there was this, and then this, right? And then this.
So nice to see you, Hannah, after a while.
And I nominate Chiara Piccolo.
You're in mute.
Yes, I'm in mute. Hi. Well, I'm following from my mobile, so I try to remember all the mimics. So it's this, not this, this, and the last one I lost it. So like that, and I will do something really in Italian, and I will nominate Georg.
That's tough because I'm also trying to tweet about the event at the same time and take screenshots. So you have to name someone else, I'm afraid.
You cheat. Okay, so I will name Mikkel.
Oh. I have forgotten a bit how it went. This one, and then this was the Italian one. That is okay. And I am, let's say who I am. I'm choosing Isabel Fernandez.
All right. So first thing, okay.
You're the last one, Isabel.
Yeah, okay. And then,
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you're all awake and attentive now. And so nice to have some last people that just joined. So welcome to those who've just joined. Right, so I'm going to pass my word on to Nico Ginter, who will start. And Nico is an educator and former Waldorf teacher in history, geography, ethics, politics, and music. And so he was also the Austrian rep for the European Council for Steiner Waldorf Education and has now taken some time off from teaching to write a book about pedagogy. He's currently living in Ireland in a rural area, he told me, so if there is a break in internet connection, that might be the reason. And he's also now teaching music. And I just want to say that he was the first participant in our collection of practices. And he designed and practiced a game of human history with class 10 students for 12 years in Austria. And it's a powerful and enjoyable learning process that integrates assessment. So please welcome Nico Ginter that will give us some further explanation on his practice.
Hello, and thank you, Elena, and a shout out to all the people that know me. Georg, for example, we haven't seen for quite a while, and a special shout out to Peter Gallin, who I'm seeing here on my screen, because he was one of the many really important inspirations for me to go on and write about my practices in teaching and assessment, and I'm very happy to have him here on this panel as well. I just tried to get everything condensed into 10 minutes, so I have to be quick because there's so much I would like to say, especially because I did a lot of research also on assessment while I was with the European Council and I was working as an Austrian representative there. A few things. I would like to talk about assessment in a wider perspective, as I think that we also have to talk about a curriculum and the reason why we have a curriculum, and as a framework to help us to develop something. And assessment, as I understand it, is a continuous approach to highlight the progression of our students' learning and should help to develop a self-reflected decision process to fulfill a potential that is already active in our students. So in my opinion, the curriculum is there for a framework where this learning could take place in. And I just want to quickly go on, because there was one thing that I think that we need to take this natural curiosity that our students have and make them take this curiosity and present and design a framework that helps our students to develop. Schiller once said that humans are only fully humans when they play. So the German version of it was, der Mensch ist nur dort ganz Mensch, wo spielt. And this, in my opinion, shows an understanding of our learning as young people. Because when children play their games, they are actually learning. Another famous pedagogue once said that the children's work is their game, they're playing. And on that occasion, I tried to take this into account when I started teaching. And I had my own learning experience when I was in school, and this was far from learning by playing. It was more learning that information has to get into this person, and then this person has to, excuse my language, has to vomit that one out in front of the teacher at a test. And this kind of testing I refer to as bulimic learning. So we just vomit it out and then we forget what we've already learned. And I found a little cartoon recently, and Eleanor might help me there and share the screen, that I think shows a bit what I'm talking about. Because in the real world outside, you might see situations like this. You did well in your real world skills. What are the real world skills that you have? And the answer could only be tests. I can take tests. And we want something different. We want people who have real world skills. And I will go back now to my idea of what assessment should actually do. It should not prepare, it should prepare us to the real world outside. It should encourage us, enable us to do things, and should help to reflect on things that we can do and things that we have to work on. And the teacher could then assess this by collecting natural occurring evidence. And as Peter Gallion once said, when we go into learning, sometimes when we go into the wrong direction, the mistake helps us to learn more than just following any kind of pre-recorded idea of the teacher. So give the people the opportunity to fail, to encourage them in learning, and make this failure not something that we are judging, but help them to understand that it's a learning experience. So what I want to do now is I want to go into my practice that I send out to the study. And I was teaching history for, as I said, 12, or as Eleanor already said, for 12 years. And I had main lessons in Steiner school. This means that we had lessons that lasted for twice 45 minutes every day in the morning. So I had quite a bit of time on my hands in the main lessons to develop something, a program that my students had as an everyday practice. And I thought about teaching early settlements and the development of cultures by playing a game. Well, I say playing the game, it is more like a learning simulation experience that creates an environment for learning. So I invented something that my students decided to call the game of ginter. And you can now see a map. I draw a map like this on a blackboard without, there are some details in this map that I didn't really write in at the beginning. It was just a blank map with wood on the side and 2 rivers. And then I started to ask my students what they would do if I just send them in this situation. And what happened is that my students very quickly had 2 very interesting answers. The one answer is I will die because I don't have any tools. And the other answer was, well, if I want to survive, I will have to find tools, I will have to find other people, and I will have to find a place where I can build my own settlement. And the interesting part is they started to find places where they would do their first settlements, and then we went on from there. In between, I had the opportunity to give them some information about the content of the game, but I did this later on in the process. While the students were doing this game or simulation, I started to give them opportunities for self-assessment and peer assessment in the way that I tried to give them retrospective times to reflect on the process and on the development that they did. And then we had self-assessment, because I always encouraged my students to talk about their own development. Then I had peer assessment moments where I helped them, or where they had to review their own process and stepped out of the game and had the possibility to retrospect on what was happening. And then I got the collecting of data. So we had also a portfolio process in the time that we worked. And I then collected what was referred to already by Ilona as natural occurring evidence. The game itself had 3 stages, or the process had 3 stages. The first one was a development of roles and frameworks. The second one was the marketplace of ideas. And the third one was a culture and progression part of the game. And I had the opportunity to take 1 week for each of those stages in development, while I fed the students information about the time frame and the circumstances in those areas. Well, how much time do we still have, Eleanor, just to get through there?
I make it 1 more minute as official timekeeper, and I have the raffle.
Thanks a million, Jan.
Yeah.
So what I have to do now is to close that one up, just to refer to something that happened just recently. Just a few days ago, a former student of mine called me, and we had a discussion because he's now studying in London. And we had a discussion about his experience as a student of this game, and he still refers to it as one of his most eye-opening learning experiences. And as a teacher, I was really happy to have a student who could see this as one of his most interesting experiences. but it's not about me, it's about the student. So I hope I could give you a slight insight in what I'm doing. And as I said, I'm now in the phase of writing about these experiences that I try to give my students. And I'm now giving back to Ilona for.
Thank you. Thank you, Nico, for sharing this with us. I just wanted to say, well, two things. Also, the whole practice is on the website. So if anybody wants to read it in full, the report, it's also to be read there. And if anybody has any questions, you can post them in the chat and we will make sure to get back to those, let it be in the plenary or in the breakout rooms after. So we will keep track of those as well.
Thank you, Kame. That was a very important point. And thank you, Nico. So I would now like to pass on the word to Ulrike, who studied English and biology, and after that did state school teacher training and became a Waldorf teacher at 2 schools, and she's been doing that for more than 20 years. She also is involved in teacher training and has put together an online platform with for e-courses for professional development of teachers. And actually, Ulrike, it would be great if you posted the link to your platform in the chat so people can have a look. And so welcome, Ulrike. Shanti, do you have anything else you would like to say to introduce Ulrike, because you were the official collector?
I think Ulrike will speak very eloquently for herself following your introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ilona and Shanti. This interview was a very interesting experience to me, and I'm very grateful that Shanti took 2 hours coming to Hamburg and did this interview with me, because it gave me also a lot of insight into my own biography. So learning and assessment have been 2 central topics for me as a teacher from early on. And I've always been very interested in finding out about learning as well as assessment. And I think there are some experiences that I had in my early years of teaching. One is that students said to me, "Make me learn. You have to make us learn." So imagine a class 10, everybody is doing all sorts of things and they want to learn something, but they sort of can't control, they can't concentrate, and they want somebody powerful to make them learn. And I had the feeling I just can't do that. So I sensed their despair, but I actually wanted them to learn how to make themselves learn, to find motivation and become active themselves. This need was often accompanied by the question, "Please tell me where I stand." So how do I have, can you tell me how I have achieved? And so they were sort of at a loss because they wanted me to tell them what they had done. And, but I wanted to enable them to evaluate themselves. So I was looking for ways of making them become independent of me as a teacher in their learning process, as well as in their evaluation of themselves. Because I think for becoming self-responsible young people, they need to be able to take activity themselves. Another strong motive was that teaching at a Waldorf school, there was a learning community of pupils with very different abilities. And so they are not divided by abilities. And I had this feeling, I want to find ways that I can address everyone. And I sometimes met wonderful young people who were so interested in my subject of biology, and they had a profound understanding of the topic. But every time they had to write an official test, they failed. So I was looking for ways of making everybody or enable everybody to participate in the practice and also to show what they could do. So I needed to change my teaching practice, and I needed to have ways of creating open spaces and creating a variety of tasks so that would allow me to discover the treasures that my students had within them and to show their different talents and capabilities. And on this journey, I encountered the portfolio idea that had a big impact on me. And I also met Peter Gerlin and was also very impressed by what I learned from him at a talk in Berlin. So the essence of what I'm doing, I would like to, as I'm a biologist, I would like to put that in a picture or an image. So imagine a meadow of wild flowers of all sorts of sizes and colors. And when these plants are provided with a good mix of water and minerals and enough sun and enough space sufficient for their development, then they will grow to their full potential. And this growth won't be increased through measuring them every day or through pulling them or trying to make them grow higher, but they just need a lot of support and the things they need. And so the consequence I draw out of that for school is that assessment needs to be based on a deep respect for every individual. And it needs to be based on this wish to detect the jewels in each child and to identify also the children's needs. So in order to supply enough support. And that means the teacher also needs to understand the learning process. And now I will share my screen with you. So the essence of this is to understand the learning process. That learning is based on a lively, deep experience. Then welcoming diversity. That means we have to find ways of having that everybody can understand and manage the tasks, and that the tasks are meaningful for everybody. And it also means a deep interest and a true interest of the teacher in the students. So it's about real questions and open tasks and not just questions for the correct answer. It's looking for the treasures. That means it offers also choice for the students to choose a topic or to choose a way of showing what they have understood. It needs identifying criteria because pupils need to understand the assessment they will be evaluated upon. And it's inviting self-agency in the way that students they get an idea of the journey we're going to take, and they have the possibility to decide and to fulfill the criteria and evaluate themselves. And now I will try to tell you a little bit about a practice that we developed in our upper school. We developed the habit to inform the students before there was a project. You don't have to read all the little details, but the students would get in the beginning of the block of a teaching time, like 3 weeks everyday lesson, get an outline of what we're going to do. So the aims of the block, to see that it's not just about learning content, but also about methods, about social behavior, that the way we're going to work so that they can understand the learning, tell them what they're supposed to do so that they get a clear idea of the task they will have to work on, and doing all this without having such a fixed plan that I don't have any flexibility anymore. So it needs to have enough space for me to change my ideas about teaching and the task, but still give an orientation to the pupils. And then there is clear assessment criteria. And after the block, the students get a feedback sheet that orientates, now this is a different block, but so you get the idea. It's orientated on the criteria they got beforehand, and they get my feedback on their participation. Here it's more sort of a tendency, it's very good or not so good. It's not about grades, but it's sort of a reflection of my perception of the students' activities. And then it can also have some words about the projects they did or the way they presented something. So it's a mix of making it a bit easier for me by setting some crosses or writing some words about it. And I will give this feedback sheet to the pupils without my comment, so they can self-evaluate their achievement. And then I do the same feedback, and then we can compare. And mostly it's very similar. And the points where we disagree, that's the interesting part for discussion. Now I'd like to go a bit deeper in this idea of choice. As I said, pupils have different abilities and different interests. And so I like to offer them a choice of how they want to show what they have worked on. So after a block of evolution or genetics, I said they could either write a text about it or they could do a mind map and find their own way of summarizing what we had worked on and what they were interested in. And these are examples of what the students did. So here they chose the mind map. Others chose to write texts. There were some newspaper articles, or just they decided to research a little bit about one animal and to summarize aspects about that. Then one girl decided to make a brochure and in her way create a journey through the block of evolution and point out the different important aspects that she found important. Another way that I now, especially due to this situation at the moment with the digital learning, was that I asked the pupils to do their own videos, the short explanatory videos about topics. So instead of just giving a talk on a topic, they did a video and designed the video in different ways. As you can see, some did some drawing. So I always like to also include artistic activities. Other possibilities that we in the upper school worked on were doing posters and having this as actually preparation for later doing good PowerPoint. But first of all, getting sort of creating themselves and having also ideas to bring in other elements or building a model on something. So it's always creating a free space where pupils can choose themselves. Sometimes they can choose the topic, or sometimes they can choose the way of presentation. And this can become quite artistic. So in the class 13, we did this project on ethology, and the students did part of the lesson themselves. So they took on some teaching and they supplemented the teaching with a poster. So it's also understanding that learning has got to do with emotion, and to, as you can see, this girl, she is quite artistic and she just liked to do this in this artistic way. So that formed a positive ground for her feelings and her relation to ethology and made the learning experience deeper by that. And yeah, this is just some more examples of the artistry the students develop, and by doing that, combining, sort of going into different subjects, but also relating outer appearance or the way of creation of design with the topic. So let's stop that now to see you again. So I have no idea about the time, Shanti, can you tell me?
Your time is up, I'm sorry to say.
Wonderful. So the PowerPoint is done and my time is over. I don't have to invent anything more. That's good. Good, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulrike. So we're going to dive right into the next one. And so I would like to welcome Tom Oosterhuis and Marianne Rongen. So Tom is the creator and founder of Mevolution, so the platform a platform for online e-portfolios, and he's been working for 21 years in all kinds of education from primary to university, and originally is a theater maker and TV director. And Marianne is a teacher, leader, and innovator at the Wittering School, and also on the level of the board of Signum, which is a network of schools that Wittering belongs to. And she also has more than 35 years of experience in the field of primary education. So Marianne, Tom, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ilona, for this introduction. Yeah, I will start the first 5 minutes. I hope I can make it in this 5 minutes. And then Marianne comes to illustrate my introduction. And I first want to share my screen with you so that I can show you some of these. All right. Well, this is the story of the Mevolution Kids e-portfolio. It's about visualizing growth. And I first want to introduce Marianne and me, although it's already done, but so I can keep it very shortly. Important is that Marianne and I work together. And the place where we did it was here in 's-Hertogenbosch in the south of the Netherlands, and it was in a school called Wittering.nl, founded in 2010 as a sort of example school for the board of Signum. That's a network of 26 schools in the south of the Netherlands around the city of 's-Hertogenbosch. And it's a very special school, and they work with so-called core concepts around all these subjects you see here. Also very important is self-expression and self-initiative. And the specialty of these schools is there are no classrooms, there are no year classes. They work in bigger groups of around 75 pupils, a mix of 3 ages. And then they do instruction in small niveau groups. So it enables every child to learn in its own tempo and on its own level. And then there was this challenge 7 years ago when I met Marianne, and she said to me, well, we have this challenge, or we have 2 open assignments for the children, or in reaction, we have 2 close assignments for the children. And also the question of how to follow the learning process, not only the outcomes, but especially the process. And that was the challenge. And then we went on working together because Marianne says, you have this model, and this model probably will help us. And I want to show you this model in a very short period. It's called social design-based learning, and it got 4 phases. So it starts with exploration, and then we will learn the children to ask themselves these questions. What is this subject that we are going to learn about in the coming weeks? What are our different and shared interests in the subjects, as well as the various talents that members of the group can contribute? What parameters have been indicated, and how do we interpret them? And how can we formulate the problem that this assignment is going to address? That's the exploration phase. And then we get the ID generation phase. And that invites to emergent ideas to develop, recognizing divergent views as well as convergent ones. And the question, for example, how much information do we need and where do we seek it? And do we have to explore outside our own boxes? And then which of the various suggestions put forward will work best, and how do we arrive at this decision together? That's the idea generation phase, and then we come to the realization phase. And this is the stage where the assignment is carried out. This is when we make specific plans, organize ourselves, and swing into action. We persevere along the lines that we have decided on and recognize opportunities and constraints as they arise, adapting as we go along. And then there is this harvesting phase, and we present our results, we assessment from different viewpoints, the task that we assigned to the class, the whole group, and each individual, and we evaluate the process we went through to arrive at these results. And very important, it's also the moment to celebrate the experience of the shared learning. Well, that's the model. And Marianne thought this model would help these children in doing more open assignments. And that's where the kids e-portfolio came in. And we developed in this past 7 years software. And the software is to start with an e-portfolio for a child, which visualizes the learning process and the learning outcome. It's also a student follow system, but especially a student follow yourself system that we think is a very important value. And in combination, it's an electronic learning environment, and it is meant for blended learning. It's not just for this COVID period so that everybody works on his own, but it's it's meant to use in real life. And the interesting thing is that we experienced that it's very important to start with the teachers themselves. So this e-portfolio is also for the teachers themselves, and in the same time for the teachers as a team. So it's about the school development, and it's a form of quality assurance. I hope you could all follow this quite abstract story. Marianne will make it more concrete, but I have to give you some examples. So in this software, we have this development lines that makes it possible for the child to see where he is in this specific moment in his development, and he can prove that by making multimedial proofs of his development with photographs, with video, so he can be very creative. I think that Ulrike would be helped very much with this way of thinking, because I recognize a lot of common principles. And then we have this principle of open assignments. I just give you this brief explanation of the social design-based learning model. And when you work online, you can you recognize the 4 phases, and then we have this form of scaffolding. It's called in science, in educational science. And then you see here the questions to help the children steer themselves through the assignment. And then there's this important combination with feedback on the learning process that the teachers give, and especially that's a very important thing is giving them feedback on the metacognition, so that the children come up with this questions themselves. That's the idea, that they will learn it in the years. Well, this is the first introduction I want to give, and now I want to introduce Marianne. I'll share again my screen, but Marianne is gonna show you her first experiences with Mevolution as an e-portfolio system, just her experience from the past 2 weeks. So it's very, yeah, it's called the premiere, I think, in the theater. Okay, here we are. Marianne, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
well, we are working for more than 5 years with it, but almost 2 weeks ago, there was a new development of Mevolution. And I'm working on more schools. So I'm working at least at 16 years now on Wittering.nl, but also on a new school. And well, I will show you some ideas and also assignments from children, but also from ourselves. As Tom told you, it's not only for children, but also for teachers. So when we are preparing our ideas about working with the children, we are working also always in a team. We are making ideas in a team. And maybe you can show us, for example, Tom, even kijken. Tijd en ruimte 2 van laan 5, zeg maar.
Ja,
deze.
hier. Ja.
No, ja, die. En er staat eronder ook trouwens. Well, you see,
This one?
De linkse eerst.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Well, je mag even scrollen. Well, we are also, which goals do we have, and why do we have that kind of goals? What kind of ideas do we have, and how can we create an environment for children that's interesting for them? Every week we make, and every day, it's every day. Every day we are making photographs, but also evaluation time to evaluate in progress. So when we as teachers know what we want, which challenges we like to make for children, then it's more easier to make the right environment and to work on the right goals and to have and for the children that they have the right tasks. Nu, Tom, kun je even die ene nou even terug en dan naar Tessel?
Well, Mariana, I just have to remind you that you're running out of time. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, it's only a few seconds left. So we have, no, that's not the right one, Tom. You have to go.
The one from
back.
Tessel.
Yeah, Tessel.
Yeah.
Well, we have a task for Tessel, and Tessel, she has to, we are working with core concepts, and now she is working in the golden age, and she has to search for a person who has inspired her, and how and what do you know about his background? What do you know about his life? And what do you like to know about him? And when they are working on that kind of questions, well, it's also very important that the children have all kind of possibilities in the school, but also they learn from us as teachers, but also from their peers. And the feedback loops are very, very important. So we the goals is one, but also how can you look further on? How can you to give the feed forward? So what Tom called scaffolding. It's all also in questioning and giving feedback in this model and in this e-portfolio. Well, I think when you want to know more of it, I hope you will, well, then choose for us in the next open source. Thank you for listening.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tom and Mariana, and very much gratitude for the work that we're carrying out with you, and it's been really a pleasure. I now leave the floor to Michiel for the open discussion. Just want to ask you, well, if you want, if any participants have things to say about how what they've heard can be applied or inspire their own work, do write that in the chat in the meantime while we're discussing. We can pick up on some of it. Michiel, are you there?
Yes, yes. So thank you very much for these really very interesting presentations. And I think this is really great, these developments and the work that you are doing. I have a general question in a way. How does it relate, these assessment practices with the final examinations in the secondary schools? For instance, because it is really a joyful way, the way that it is being presented. But we have also in all our schools, we have in France, you have the baccalaureate, in Germany, you have the Abitur. So can somebody react on that? And in the Netherlands, we have Eindexamen. Ulrike Sievers.
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy to relate to that because I've been teaching students and lead them to the final Abitur for 20 years now. And this is what I meant with my image of the flowers. If I find ways of really deep transformative learning, which is connected with deep experience and with motivation and expressing themselves, then they will learn as much as they can. And then they will achieve well in the final examinations because they have really connected to what I'm learning. So it's not so much the content. In certain aspects, I have to take into account the content that will be asked afterwards, but it's the way of how I deal with it and how I encourage the students and how I give feedback for the next step. And this is absolutely can be combined with any aim I have, because it's deep transformative learning, what they also need to pass examinations.
Yeah, I give the floor to Helma. Helma has a question. Helma, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I unmute myself. Yes. Well, I was thinking all the time.
Say who you are for a moment.
Oh, I'm Helma Brouwers. I'm a member of the Janusz Kocak Association, and as such, a member also of the Alliance for Childhood. And I'm working in the working group about early childhood education and care of the European Union. And that's why I have this question. I wonder, I have no answers, but I just wonder if there is such a thing like age-appropriate assessment, because let's say infants 4, 5, 6 years old, do they have capacities to reflect, or is it one of the like executive functions, we call it, something that still needs to be developed? So do we assess young children in the same way as, for instance, Ulrike is mentioning, and Tom and Mariana? I just wonder, what do you do with the very young ones in the basis school? We do have the 4, 5, 6 years old in the same school. And I just wonder if the same way of assessing is appropriate for them as well. Maybe some people who have experience with this, please tell me.
Well, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. When I met Tom, I was working with the 4-year-old, and I was wondered about the idea he was presenting then on that moment. And yes, it's a different way with younger children, because the first 2 steps in the phase you saw have to do by the teachers. So they have to search and to create an environment where children can learn, but also can do a lot of experiences. And then the teachers are following their development with all kind of photographs and videos, and they will show them also to the children, and the children like to see themselves, and also, yes, a week ago I made that kind of building works, or I was playing role play, I was playing in the role play corner, and now I can do this and this. So yes, it's also for younger children, but they need more help, and it's also for the teachers an opportunity to look another way to development. So yeah, I hope that I have questioned your answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Michiel,
Yeah.
we have some comments in the chat as well going
I
on.
see it. I see it.
Okay, good. And Irmeli Hallinen says that she could also give a view on this question.
I give her the floor. Yeah. Emily, please pose your question. Where is Emily? Oops.
No, I didn't have any question.
Okay.
But I would like to comment on.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that okay? Yes. First of all, I would like to thank all the presenters. It was really interesting and wonderful to listen. And this kind of assessment is also something that we have tried to develop in Finland, also at the national level. I was working before my retirement as the head of curriculum development in the national agency, and I was responsible for the big curriculum reform that we finished with that in 2016, and so now teachers are working according to these guidelines, and especially when we think smaller children, younger children. So it is, we have emphasized that it is important that they learn to understand what are the main objectives they are working towards. So what they try to do, what they try to learn. So become more aware about that. And then when we talk about their self-assessment, the main thing is that they could find in themselves the best, the kind of best features where they are good at, and be proud of themselves as learners. And we think that it creates a very strong basis for more analytical, more reflective practices. Like Ulrike said, that with smaller ones, it must not be so reflective, but they should get feedback about their strengths and positive sides, and so become self-confident in learning. But anyway, this kind of respective, encouraging, constructive, fair, ethical assessment is important, and we try to develop it in the whole country.
Good. Thank you very much, Emily. So I go back. Are there other comments or other questions?
There was a question in the chat a few moments ago. Before Helma's question, what are the biggest challenges in assessment procedure solutions that you have found during blended learning? So maybe Justina wants to ask her question. Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, it's correct. Thank you.
Please say, what is blended learning? I don't know.
Blended learning, it's like live or online.
Okay.
Because in pandemic,
the combination.
Yes, yeah. Because in the pandemic period, we are facing this situation when we have that mode, when we have online learning and face-to-face.
And what was the comment now? Please clarify. What the question?
So what would be the procedure of the assessment during this blended learning process? Is it different? Is it similar? Do you have some solutions in that case? Thank you.
Yeah, and can you say, what is your background? From where are you?
I'm from Czech Republic and representing vocational actually school. And we're working on also on the ECSWE. It's European credit system for vocational education and training. And we also considering the part of the assessment when the students are going for trainings and so on.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Is
you.
one of the presenters could want to react to this question?
I would like to.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Because I'm very much into this question of digital, online, blended, hybrid learning at the moment. So I think, on the one hand, I think what I wanted to add, assessment is also, we need to assess the students so that we know about our teaching. And I think this was especially important in this lockdown phase, because a lot of teachers just tried to put the classroom onto the screen. And then they noticed that this does not work at all. So we have to totally change our teaching behavior if we do online. Totally online, or at the moment I'm teaching half the class in the school and the other half is sitting at the computer and I have them on the screen. So I have to develop totally new ways of teaching. And for that, I need permanent assessment because that tells me whether I reach them. And so I also have to develop ways of assessment. So for example, typing in the chat is naturally occurring evidence.
Yeah.
Participating in breakout rooms is group work. Working on a document together is cooperation. And so we have also a lot of ways of not just producing worksheets and having them write long essays and we sit there and correct until dark, but to really have this interaction. And I think we have a strong need to learn a lot. So on our platform, we are collecting a lot of examples of practice. How can we deal with this situation and still go on teaching, learning, and assessing, and enjoying the whole thing?
Thank you. Thank you.
Michiel?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
There's also two people that raised their hand.
Okay.
Arya.
Where are they? We have 3 screens, so.
I think Erik was first.
Oh, okay, we go to.
Yeah.
Where is
Okay.
Erik? Okay.
I'm here. I unmuted myself. Thank you.
Go. Erik Ballhaus. First tell who you are, and then you.
I'm
you
Erik
pose your
Ballhaus.
question.
I'm Erik Ballhaus, and I work at the Executive Agency for Education, Audiovisual, and Culture at the European Commission. I'm a great fan of the LLP network. We have several projects with them. So this is a very interesting discussion. And one of the things, thank you for somebody putting the definition of blended learning referring to the SchoolNet gateway. There's lots of information there, just to point that out on other projects and also on assessment and things like that. One major initiative currently, which is currently very successful, I want to briefly mention it, is Selfie. So if you Google Europa EU Selfie, this is an assessment tool which was developed with ministries of education and experts and schools, and is readily available and for free. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. I'm very impressed by the projects and the different methods, and I think that this is the way forward. And one thing I noticed is, that the nice thing I think for teachers, which happened during lockdown, is that yes, there was a lot of workload, but what also happened is that for once the situation reversed, which means that the parents were in the role of the teachers suddenly, and suddenly realized how difficult teaching is. And so this is maybe something for the discussion also for the breakout rooms. We're discussing a lot how the relationship between teachers and students or pupils, but that now is also the opportunity to draw in the parents in the teaching and how to do that, and to extend blended learning and blended teaching to somehow to the parents. So there are some projects which include parents, but this could be a very interesting point to reverse this role that we have school as a separate learning environment and the home as a learning environment.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's a great pleasure. I notice now that we have different people from the European Commission also in our room, and normally the people from the Commission, although it is 300 or 400 meters to come to the Parliament, only occasionally they join us, but now they are here.
Of course.
So most welcome. And
thank you for having us.
Yes, it's really great. And I think you are also maybe the person that is following this project. This is in your portfolio. So that's good. Very welcome. Ilona, have you noticed another question? Because you are watching.
Yes, maybe shall we move to one last question?
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed one question in the chat. So that was, how do you overcome the challenge of bigger workload for teachers in such assessment approaches, and how do you overcome teachers' resistance to it? There were some answers to it already in the chat, but not really to the second question. How do you overcome teachers' resistance to it? So does anyone have
Nico? Is Nico wants he? Can I give the floor to Nico?
Thanks a million. Well, that's an important question. On the other hand, I think that the workload for teachers on those kinds of assessments are sometimes less than what you think it will be. Because if I do, like, for example, my kind of assessment as a learning simulation, much of what happens within the classroom is due to the creativity of the students. So I give the opportunity back to the students in a way. The only thing that I have to be really interested in what I'm teaching. And if I'm really interested in what I'm teaching, I have the opportunity to get more or less my students' interest as well. And if I'm sure of what I'm doing, I think that's the important part as a teacher. And the resistance of teachers, I think the first thing that we have to think about is, how do we educate our teachers? Because teaching is a lifelong thing. If you ever started to be a teacher, you will be a teacher for the rest of your life, even if you stop teaching. And I think the important part in this would be just to help them to be open. Like, discussions like this are important parts of it. But I think it has to start with the school as a system. It has to start with the education of the teachers, and to give them those kind of examples and help them to develop something. Because, as I said, it's even less of workload to assess those things, because you give the possibility of assessment to the students as well. Their self-assessment possibilities, their peer assessment possibilities, they help you to do this. And so I think it's just a matter of, how do we educate our teachers in the future?
I fully agree. Ilona, can I make one last remark to close this part?
Yeah, absolutely, because we're going to move on to the next bit. So
to
go
the
ahead.
next bit. So what I want to say is, in the Alliance for Childhood, we really have an interest to see the pathways of children. And it has occurred so often that children have been disregarded, and not that they had not a high regard of children and young people in school. And then afterwards, they did so well. They did exceptionally well. I mean, I take now Angela Merkel. I saw a documentary on television that her teachers were interviewed, and nobody had ever thought that she would be the Chancellor of the Republic of Germany. And so I think it's also good to pay attention to to help in a way teachers to become curious, and also always to have in the back of their mind, maybe I don't see the full potential of this person. And another thing is, I have here, I show you the book, a book of a Dutch person, Dolf. And this man, he is a great artist in combining plants together in gardens and parks, plants that are never used for, before were not used in gardens and so on. And now he got the assignment in New York City to make, to design a big park. And then suddenly he was also discovered in the Netherlands. So there are also, of course, all sorts of things that we are not teaching in school, and that is and that will that are later will be important. So with these remarks, I hand over the floor again to Ilona, and it was great to share this little event with you and to share this all. Okay, I hand it over.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have Isabella that asked a question about the teacher's resistance that says, thank you for your responses. I need all these arguments to respond to teacher's resistance. So we've obviously answered the question. So thank you, Isabella, for the feedback. We're now going to be divided into 3 groups. Given the time constraints, I think we are going to do this randomly, and you will all be assigned to a group. We will have about just under 15 minutes to discuss with the teachers. And so the question that we posed for this working group is, what policy changes would facilitate and support these practices? So that's the theme, but of course, if there are other comments, there's also space to make them there. Andrea, can you divide us?
Yes, I'm doing it as we speak. It just needs a little time.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything else?
30 seconds and you'll be shipped to your rooms.
Okay, anything else that some members of my team need to say before we jump into these rooms?
Say it again, Ilona. What is the task for us? What policy changes?
Okay, let me read out the question again. What policy changes would facilitate and support these practices? And I also added in, and how does the current policy context facilitate them already?
Yeah, let me write it. What policy changes would facilitate?
Don't worry, it will be projected on your screen, because we're going to, the note takers will project their screen. So don't worry.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. I'll put the questions in the chat. Well, no, actually, they'll be projected on your screen. So note takers.
Are the note takers divided in the 3 rooms, Ilona?
Yes, you should be correctly divided. Just accept your invitation.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Yes, that was a bit of an abrupt ending. Sorry. All right. So, well, we've only got a few minutes left together, but maybe I can just have a look at what's been put on the chart. And there have been lots of ideas. I can already see sticky notes in all directions. So I can see in the identified challenges, we have things like the resistance of teachers and the importance of further, well, that's for in the solution, sorry, the long tradition of popular assessment practices, the fact that change is a challenge, the fact that teachers like doing corrections, that testing is part of policy, that different countries have different policies. But we also have a lot of solutions to this. For example, that further education of teachers can help to overcome the fear of change, that the focus on learning and not on the teaching can be helpful. We also have some things about including parents in the transformation, and of course, age-appropriate approach to assessment. I just want to mention about that, actually, that we didn't really give the ages or insist on the ages that were part of the the assessment practice that were presented today, but it's obvious that within the different practices, the age is key, and some practices are actually adaptable to further age groups, but need to be changed and you know, done in the right way for the different ages. So apologies if that wasn't clear, but that was definitely part of it, of course. So also the importance of leadership and awareness raising for transformation, designing more open assignments, etc., etc. So there were also some very interesting comments about the fact that policy actually supports all of these kinds of things, and so the question of why do these writing high stakes written tests are still so present, and this suggestion by to create a declaration or a charter to present the good practices and link to the new way of teaching and learning, and also perhaps map the life skills that we have and how that translates in a lifelong learning path. So it's also the comment that linked to that, some other groups talking about that the importance of not policy change, but change of view of teachers and competence-based assessment. So I hope that you all, actually, I'm going to post the link to this board that is continuing to being, there we go. This Justina asked, is it possible to see the whole Miro board? So I haven't been able to say everything, of course, and I'm going to give the word to Shanti, who's going to give some closing remarks before we have to leave. But if you want to see any of the other ideas that are still being organized on the board, I just posted the link in the chat. And before I pass it on to Shanti, just 1 minute, is there anyone from one of the groups that wants to, is there something very, very important that I missed? No. Okay. Well, go ahead, Shanti. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us for this online session today. I hope it was fruitful.
Thank you, Ilona, and thank you to everyone who is present. It feels rather strange to be closing a conversation which seems only to be just beginning. 3 different conversations in 3 different rooms and our plenary. But we can be assured that our hosts today, which is the Alliance for Childhood and the Lifelong Learning Platform, they provide forums for ongoing debates like this. And we are very grateful to you all, Mikhail, Chiara, Natalia, Arya, Andrea, and Maria. Thank you for giving us the space to share the project more widely. I would also like to emphasize we have shared 3 of the practices out of a potential collection of 20. And I'm sure there are very, very many more that all of you and people you know are aware of. So this is an encouragement. May 1,000 good assessment practices bloom and contend in the world as it is today, even this side of utopia. We have seen, thanks to Ulrika, Tom, Mariana, and Nico, that it is indeed possible. And there are organizations such as NIVOS in the Netherlands, through whom we have found the practices there and in other countries that encourage these brave efforts of teachers and school leaders. Of course, we entered this debate from our own particular viewpoints. The European Council of Steiner Waldorf Education, the Hungarian Waldorf Federation, and the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation. 2 people who unfortunately were not able to be here today, Richard Landl of ECSWE and Daniel Kropf of the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation, would have put our entry points much better than I can. You have seen the good working between Ilona and Kame as our co-facilitators. It symbolizes something of the spirit which we bring to this project, the pedagogical spirit, which Steiner Waldorf Education sees as enabling each child to become who she or he is, not forcing them into some template. And from the Learning for Wellbeing point of view, assessment is a competent intergenerational partnership, acting together for mutual learning across the generations, not an ordeal that children should be put through. We also bring to it the principles of learning for well-being and assessing for learning for well-being. You'll see some of that in the chat, for example, put in by Louis. The idea that we relate to the whole child and not only to the mental development. The idea that each child has unique potential and inner diversity in learning. And also the various core capacities, everyday capacities that we are born with and we grow up with, and that learning should encourage rather than thwart. We have heard from Tom and Marianne about observing children. We have heard from Ulrika about listening to them. And we have heard from Nico about empathizing with a history of bygone era through work done in the class. So as I say, it's only just beginning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the comments in the chat and in the plenary. Please keep in touch. Please keep the conversation going. Thank you for being here. And the Lifelong Learning Platform, which has been so patient with us, has another event starting in minutes. We'll need the Zoom account for this. So thank you to both the host organizations and everyone who was present, and the struggle continues. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I've just posted the PowerPoints in the chat. So hopefully before the meeting ends, you can download them.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And we will be sharing resources afterwards. Bye.
Have
Yes.
a nice Christmas. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
And a new year full of promise.
Thank you very much.